Horton Hatches the Egg, written and illustrated by Dr. Seuss. The author writes the book, the author writes the book, the illustrator draws the picture, the author writes the book. Sighed Maisie, a lazy bird hatching an egg. I'm tired, I'm bored, and I've kinks in my leg. From just sitting here, day after day. It's work, how I hate it. I'd much rather play. I'll take a vacation, fly off for a rest, if I could find someone to stay on my nest. If I could find someone, I'd fly away free. You can see she is sitting on, taking care of her egg. And birds need to stay on their eggs to keep them warm so that their babies can grow. Then Horton the elephant passed by her tree. "Hello," called the lazy bird, smiling her best. "You've nothing to do, and I do need a rest. Would you like to sit on the egg in my nest?" The elephant laughed. "Why, of all silly things! I haven't feathers, and I haven't wings. Me on your egg? Why, that doesn't make sense. Your egg is so small, ma'am, and I'm so immense." Is immense small or big? If the elephant is immense, that's right, he's big. "Tut, tut," answered Maisie. "I know you're not small, but I'm sure you can do it. No trouble at all. Just sit on it softly. You're gentle and kind. Come, be a good fellow. I know you won't mind." "I can't," said the elephant. "Please," begged the bird. "I won't be gone long, sir. I give you my word. I'll hurry right back while I'll never be missed." "Very well," said the elephant, "since you insist." He's a very good friend, that elephant, although he doesn't even know Maisie. He's just being an ally to a stranger in his community. "You want a vacation, go fly off and take it. I'll sit on your egg, and I'll try not to break it. I'll stay and be faithful. I mean what I say." "Toodaloo!" sang out Maisie, and she fluttered away. He says he'll be faithful. That means he'll be loyal and he'll stick to his word. That's a good quality in an elephant or a human. The first thing to do," murmured Horton. "Let's see. The first thing to do is to prop up the tree and make it much stronger. That has to be done. Before I get on it, I must weigh a ton. 1 ton is 2,000 pounds. Elephants are very heavy." Then carefully, tenderly, gently he crept up to the trunk, to the nest, where the little egg slept. Then Horton the elephant smiled. "Now that's that!" And he sat, and he sat, and he sat, and he sat. What tool is he using here? That's right, it's patience tool. And he sat all that day. Look at this weather. Big storms, you see rain and lightning. You might expect there's thunder too. And he kept that egg warm, and he sat all that night through a terrible storm. It poured and it lightened. It thundered, it rumbled. "This isn't much fun," the poor elephant grumbled. "I wish she'd come back, 'cause I'm cold and I'm wet. I hope that Maisie bird doesn't forget." Well, but Maisie, by this time, was far beyond reach, enjoying the sunshine way off in Palm Beach. It's all the way in Florida. That's where my grandparents live. And having such fun, such a wonderful rest, and she decided she'd never go back to her nest. Now, you can see Maisie up there having a wonderful time relaxing, and she probably needed a break, but I don't think it's fair for her to leave Horton all alone. So Horton kept sitting there day after day, and soon it was autumn. What's another word for autumn? Fall. The leaves blew away, and then came the winter, the snow and the sleet, and icicles hung from his trunk and his feet. But Horton kept sitting, and said with a sneeze, "Achoo! Achoo! Stay on this egg, and I won't let it freeze. I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful, 100%. So poor Horton sat there the whole winter through, and then came the springtime with troubles anew. His friends gathered round, and they shouted with glee, "Look! Horton the elephant, up in a tree!" They taunted, they teased him, they yelled, "How absurd! Old Horton the elephant thinks he's a bird." Not kind. But it is pretty silly looking. Uh-oh. This book is falling apart before my very eyes. This is a very old book, you can see. My oldest brother wrote his name in it, and he's 34 now. So this is a couple decades old. They laughed, and they all ran away, and Horton was lonely. He wanted to play. That connection, if you've ever felt lonely before. You can use your empathy tool. But he sat on the egg, and he continued to say, "I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful, 100%. No matter what happens, the egg must be tended." But poor Horton's troubles were far, far from ended. For while Horton sat there, so faithful, so kind, 3 hunters came sneaking up softly behind. He heard the men's footsteps. He turned with a start. 3 rifles were aiming right straight at his heart. Did he run? He did not. Horton stayed on that nest, and he held his head high, and he threw out his chest, and he looked at the hunters as much as to say, "Shoot if you must, but I won't run away. I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful, 100%. But the men didn't shoot, much to Horton's surprise. They dropped their 3 guns, and they stared with wide eyes. Why do you think they're staring? Yeah, it's a very strange sight to see. "Look!" they all shouted. "Could such a thing be? An elephant sitting on top of a tree? It's strange, it's amazing, it's wonderful, new. Don't shoot him, we'll catch him. That's just what we'll do. We'll take him alive, why he's terribly funny. We'll sell him back home to a circus for money." And the first thing he knew, they had built a big wagon with ropes on the front for the pullers to drag on. They dug up his tree and they put it inside, with Horton so sad that he practically cried. "We're off!" the men shouted, and off they all went, with Horton unhappy, 100%. Oh, this would be really scary. Up out of the jungle, up into the sky, up over the mountains 10,000 feet high, then down the mountains and down to the sea, with the cart and the elephant, egg, nest, and tree. Then out of the wagon and onto the ship, but over the ocean, and oh, what a trip! Rolling and tossing and splashed with the spray. Sound connection if you've ever been on a boat or seen a boat before. And Horton said day after day after day, "I meant what I said." Say it with me. "And I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful, 100%. Well, after bobbing around for 2 weeks like a cork, they landed at last in the city of New York. "All ashore!" the men shouted, and down with the lurch went Horton the elephant, still on his perch. Tied onto a board that could just scarcely hold him. Bump! Horton landed, and the men sold him. Sold to a circus, then week after week they showed him to people at 10 cents a peek. They took him to Boston, to Kalamazoo, Chicago, Weehawken, and Washington too, to Dayton, Ohio, St. Paul, Minnesota, to Wichita, Kansas, to Drake, North Dakota. Whew, you might get out your map for this. And everywhere thousands of folks flocked to see and laugh at the elephant up in the tree. Oh, we have a visitor. See the elephant up there? Poor Horton grew sadder the farther he went, but he said as he sat in the hot noisy tent, "I meant what I said, and I said what I meant, an elephant's faithful 100%. Then one day the circus show happened to reach a town way down south, not so far from Palm Beach. Who lives in Palm Beach, do you remember? Besides my grandparents. And dawdling along, way up high in the sky, who of all people should chance to fly by but that old good-for-nothing bird runaway Maisie, still on vacation, and still just as lazy. And spying the flags in the tents just below, she sang out, "What fun! Why, I'll go to a show!" She doesn't expect to see Horton and her egg there. And she swooped from the clouds through an open tent door. "Good gracious!" gasped Maisie. "I've seen you before." Poor Horton looked up with his face white as chalk. He started to speak, but before he could talk, turn to the person next to you or a stuffed animal and tell them what you think is going to happen. There rang out the noisiest, ear-splitting squeaks from the egg that he'd sat on for 51 weeks. That's only 1 week away from a whole year. A thumping, a bumping, a wild, alive scratching. "My egg!" shouted Horton. "My egg! Why, it's hatching!" "But it's mine!" screamed the bird when she heard the egg crack. The work was all done, now she wanted it back. Is that fair for Horton to do all of the work and then get it back? "It's my egg," she sputtered. "You stole it from me. Get off of my nest and get out of my tree." It's not very nice. Poor Horton backed down with a sad, heavy heart. But at that very instant the egg burst apart, and out of the pieces, red and white shell, from the egg that he'd sat on so long and so well, Horton the elephant saw something whiz. It had ears and a tail and a trunk just like his. It's part bird, part elephant. And the people came shouting, "What's all this about?" And they looked and they stared with their eyes popping out. Then they cheered and they cheered and they cheered more and more. They'd never seen anything like it before. "My goodness, my gracious," they shouted, "my word, it's something brand new. It's an elephant bird. And it should be like that." Because Horton was faithful, and he sat, and he said what he meant, and he meant what he said, and he said what he meant. And they sent him home happy, 100%. The end. Happy Monday, TK. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow.